Vision Tech Perspectives. This is Dave Swain with Vision Technology Management, and as usual, my co-host Doug Johnson. Doug, how you doing today?
Dave, I'm doing great. Appreciate being back.
Fantastic. We're going to go into what's become a very hot topic, Doug. We have a gentleman with us, Francisco, with Helios, and we're going to start talking about AI. Helios is using AI quite a bit, and so I think we have kind of a subject matter expert that we're going to take advantage of him. So, Francisco, welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Doug. I'm Francisco. I'm the CEO of Helios Artificial Intelligence. We've built basically the best platform in the world to predict the price and availability of ag commodities. We cover 65 commodities now across 85 countries. It's pretty awesome. We've predicted 90% of all the disruptions that have occurred in these commodities over the last 10 years. And we forecast the prices of these up to 560% better than the industry average. So wow. Really thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. Let's kind of start with the basics of AI because, I've been having fun watching all of the discussions about AI, and I have my skepticism, my own skepticism of it. I think everybody does. There's the ones that are like AI, full embrace, full bore ahead. It's going to be the savior of the world. And then there's the other end of the spectrum. Oh my gosh, we can't do anything with it. It's going to be the bane of our existence. It's going to end humankind. Thank you very much. Stop full.
Yeah, we're done. Buy some cans, find a basement.
Yeah, go to the mountaintop and wait for the end. And we said the same thing about the internet. Back in the late 90s, internet really started chugging up and getting viable, I'll say. Mm-hmm. And everybody said the same thing about it. The best thing since sliced bread, worst thing that's ever happened to us. And to a certain degree, guess what? It's both. Mm-hmm. Just like any other tool, it can be the worst tool to use, but it can also be the best tool to use. And I think that's where we need to get to with AI. And a lot about AI, I mean, most people think about, Arnold Schwarzenegger and the AI that he was in
Terminator. Yeah,
Terminator. Movie. There it is. And everybody thinks that that's what AI is going to be. It might be, I don't know. But at the same time, I think a lot of the fear of AI is the misunderstanding of it. And so what I'd really like to talk about today is, first off, what is it? What does it mean? And how can we rely on it? Yep. How do we ask questions of it? Even with people, you got to know how to ask the question to get the answer.
Yeah.
So how do we do that so that we can take advantage of AI and not be manipulated by AI? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the basics of it.
Yeah, it's a really good baseline, right? Because if we look at artificial intelligence as a whole, it's not a single piece of technology, if you will, right? You have large language models we've talked about. You have machine learning models. You have your more traditional data science. It's all underpinned by what you will, kind of math and statistics. And there's different frameworks that you can use. But the best way to think about it is, if you look at it as a whole, there are a bunch of different tools that artificial intelligence is using. If you took a step back and said, all right, let's not worry about, like, is it computer vision? And that's, can you look at a bunch of images and tell me what they are? Or is it a large language model? Or is it, a machine learning model? The three big things that are happening in the space that have allowed this kind of explosion of innovation is compute, data, and algorithms. Compute is really just how expensive and how fast is it for me to train new models? Is it, for me to put in more data? Is it for me to run the systems a lot faster? Compute is cheaper than it's ever been. It's kind of magical. A company like ours could never have afforded to do what we do. We have 500 billion data points we're updating almost daily. That would have been prohibitively expensive. We can do that now, right? And it doesn't really cost us that much. Data, to your point, Dave, on the internet, you've trained a lot of these models on the full internet. I mean, there's not new data left for them that isn't on the internet to still train on. And so you now have access to more data than at any other point in human history. And you have the compute to train these models at speed, at scale, at a very low cost than ever before. And then the third part is you have new algorithms that are able to make it a lot more predictive, if you will, and a lot more insightful, right, to use a human term, than before. And, we can talk about some of the advances. I mean, a lot of credit to the OpenAI team for really launching that first scale LLM and what happened there. But also there's really cool new stuff that's happening today that has kind of left LLMs behind.
When we look at ChatGPT, let's just use that. Everybody goes in and asks the question, oh, what about, who's going to win the Super Bowl, or who's the best college football team, since we're moving into the fall and football season, and asking some of those base questions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when let's talk about the large language models, the LLMs, and you said that's kind of becoming that passe. Well, shoot, I haven't even figured out what that is, and it's already over.
Yeah.
So, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah, it is really remarkable, and we should talk about that. Things are moving so much faster. I mean, I've been working in the technology space for 20 years. Things are moving so much faster than anything I've ever seen. And, one of the biggest differences we've seen is not just how fast the technology is evolving, but how fast people are engaging with it. I think there's 2 billion people now who are using ChatGPT, like 1 billion queries a day. It's incredible. I mean, and that's in 2 years, give or take. It took us, multiples of that to get the same type of engagement with the internet. Much, much longer than even that for personal computers. And so that is one of the things that is fundamentally different, right? How accessible this technology is at scale globally. To your earlier point on I love the Super Bowl question. So a traditional LLM, the way it's built is it's statistically trying to guess what the next word is. So you train it on all this data and says, hey, can you write a sonnet in a Shakespearean form? It looks, all right, well, I have thousands of Shakespearean sonnets, and I'm gonna, figure out what the right next, iambic pentameter, which I've never really understood what it is. But, you figure out what the sonnet should be like. If you're asking it, who's going to win the next Super Bowl, you'd probably look at the teams that have won the Super Bowl recently, maybe the Eagles, for example, and you'd say, well, the Eagles are going to win the next Super Bowl. I'm an Eagles fan. It was a long drought. We don't have to talk about it. But then, the way you can do it now.
I'm a Colts fan, so I understand your pain. So
there you go. But the way you could do it now is you're moving away from just this, traditional large language model that is trying to figure out what the right next word is. And you're what we call now, it's like multi-platform agents. And the best way to think about it is you now have a team of analysts, each of them doing different tasks for you. And then they're working together to come up with the answer. And so if you ask a team of agents, hey, who's going to win the next Super Bowl? It's going to take you a bit longer than if you just ask generic ChatGPT. But you could have one agent pull all of the historical data. You could have another agent pull all of the current team members and all of their stats, including the newest recruits, and you could look at their college information. Then, you could figure out, all right, well, how are they stacking up over the next season? When are they playing in the cold? Do they play better in the cold? Do they play better in the heat? Do they play better at home? Do they play better away? All the things, all the permutations, if you will, that would be impossible for a human being to do well, artificial intelligence do very quickly. And then it would give you, and it might still be wrong, right? Because humans are not that predictable. It would give you probably the best answer out there about who's going to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, so let me throw this at you, because there's a whole element that is missing in this, and I'm sticking with the Super Bowl
Yeah.
example here. And there's the coach's gut feel on a play. You have is the team gelling, or is there some prima donna out there that's toxic on the team?
Yeah.
Or is Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift on the rocks,
They
and so
break
now
up, yeah, and he's not
he's
playing,
just completely blown out of the water of his, I mean, he's just wrecked. And so now he can't catch a football to save his life because Taylor broke up with him, or they're just having troubles, or she's in Europe and he misses her dearly, whatever the case is. So you have that personal thing, that the human element. Does AI, or is AI able to take any of that into account of what that looks like?
It's a really interesting question. And this is why I think you have the marriage of still, right? And that might change, but you have humans helping to direct artificial intelligence. So you could say, hey, great job, agents. You're missing the human element, right? And here's a bunch of things that I worry about. And you could also start tracking Twitter posts. You could start tracking the location of Taylor Swift's, tours and whether or not they're overlapping. And then you could do the analysis of, does he actually play better when she's at the game or not at the game? Based on the number of Twitter mentions that they have and how many likes they have. And, you could do all of that as long as you have the data. And you could start adding to that. And you could say, well, this coach typically, I don't know, under these particular circumstances, they've done this type of work. And he trained under, X coach. And this other coach used to do these types of things. And so part of it is, I think, still, and that is probably changing, which is disappointing, right? But at least today, true experts, right, are able to really set aside that framework. You have to look at who trained you, how old are you, what's your history, and you can give it all the inputs. But now, right, something that would have been impossible for you to do because it would have taken you 10 analysts 3 months to do, you're able to kind of automate. And so there's really nothing stopping us from creating this kind of super cool engine that is looking at all these different inputs.
Is LLM part of the initial AI?
I mean, AI has been around for a while. LLM is one of the latest, I think, innovations.
Okay. And then when you talk about we need to train some of the output that it gives, I've never found an 800 number to call. How do you train a model that says this is wrong information, partially inaccurate? How do you do that? Because full disclosure, I am probably on the very skeptical side of AI. I don't have my bunker or anything like that, but when I have used AI, the Chat GPT and Copilot, all that, I have found it more inaccurate than I found accurate. What I find AI being super beneficial is the technology development, where that can really drive things that would have taken us decades. Now it could be literally minutes, right? But how do you train models? Because I'll give you one example here. I asked on our farm, I said, look, what if I sell our carbon credits on our farm, but I want them back?
Yeah.
And AI said, quote, be careful of selling carbon credits on your farm. It's like selling pieces of your soul to the wind.
It's a very romantic
Wow.
notion.
Wow.
I don't even know what it said. And I wanted to call somebody and say, what are you typing here? But I did find out that AI, the writing style, it can't just give you numbers, zeros and ones. It has to have a writing style. In part, AI gets its writing style from romance novels. And I don't know.
It can.
Yeah, if you can shed a little bit of light on how do you correct or contribute without being the closet dweller in the basement that intentionally delivers false information. How do we do that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So let's take a step back. When I say training, it very early on, decades ago, there was this idea that you should train computers the way you train the human brain. And so I have an 8-week-old. As she gets older, you're pointing out a bunch of dogs, and you say, you know, that's a dog, that's a dog, that's a dog, that's a dog. And dogs are a wonderful example because dogs look totally different, right? You can have a Bernese Mountain Dog and you can have a Chihuahua. And we know they're both dogs, but they don't look anything alike. I mean, they're both walking on 4, but you have a bunch of other animals that walk on 4, like tigers, right, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's something special about the human brain where you can start identifying these types of patterns. This was the idea behind how do we create, you know, we have to use all of this data that's available, so pictures of dogs, if you will, and we have to feed it to a computer, and eventually the computer is starting to identify all the different patterns. And so you give it 1 million pictures of dogs, and then you show it a picture of a dog. It goes, great, that's a dog, that's a Shih Tzu. That's what we talked about early on with compute. But Doug, to your point, the outcome, the training data is the 1 million pictures of dogs. And so the data was really important because it's easy to get 1 million pictures of dogs, but it's probably really hard to get really good data about carbon credits. It used to be, right? Or really good data around Shakespearean sonnets, or really good data around agricultural outcomes. So 2 things changed. One, compute got cheap enough and the machines became powerful enough that you could actually start training it on the whole of the internet. And so it's almost like having 1 million pictures of dogs for a lot of the questions that you have out there. That was a huge step forward. The second part, in terms of what changed, is you could ask it. So there's your training, right? I'm just thinking of the particular example for us. One of the things that's been hardest for us is how do you train a model to identify agricultural disruptions? There isn't a database of, hey, here are all the places where like there was a disruption. So we had to track down that information manually and in partnership with our customers, and they'll go, hey, there was a disruption in Peru on mangoes, there was a disruption in sunflower oil in Ukraine, pineapples are down 30% in Costa Rica right now, right this season. We've taken all that proprietary information and we can tell a model, hey, here's the outcome, right? Here are all the different disruptions that we've identified. We have access to all of this incredible weather information. And we can say, all right, now, you know, figure out the information that would have been most useful for you, model, so that you could predict these disruptions. But the training data, right, that outcome data is really, really, really important. Without it, you can't really train a model, right? The outcome data is really, really important.
So I know part of when I asked AI, being very simplistic, what are your data sources? So I'm on ChatGPT. Tell me where you get your data sources. It listed all this stuff. And I specifically said, do you get data from Facebook? And we all know Facebook, the ultimate news source, right? It's always accurate. And it said, yes, in part, I received data from. So the data, in my opinion, is highly flawed. It's opinionated and it's biased. And I'll go and say it's inaccurate because you have trolls on there. So how do you, and I'm going to focus on ChatGPT here. I ask a naive question because I don't know the answer, or I won't ask the question. I ask a simple question, I get an answer. I assume that it's correct, but gut feel said it's not. And I had to do all these steps to validate that it's just garbage. So prove to me that, how do I improve the quality of data that I'm receiving?
Yeah, it's a crucial question, right? Where the second part of, if we just stick to LLMs, you can give them context. And so you can change their style of writing, but you can also tell them where they need to get their data. So we did, you know, we work only with procurement teams that are buying and selling agricultural commodities. These are our guys. One of the, you know, we did this analysis recently that was, can you tell me what percentage of food inflation is related to kind of weather changes? And so that, you know, we think of that as more structural. But we had to tell it, make sure you're getting your inflation data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. and not from some of these. And so you are able to start controlling, here are the sources that we trust where we want you to get the data. You can also ask it very specifically, any data that you're showing me, I need you to show me the source. That's a new thing that it can do now. And it's all part of the context in the prompt. And then the third part is you can create what's called like your own GPTs. And so we have a ton of them, but one of them is, hey, you're a commodity analyst with 20 years of experience. You're talking to other commodity analysts with 10 years of experience, using that context, that framework, and pulling from, only pull from these sources, if you will, or anything you're quoting, you need to tell me what the source is. Then you ask it a bunch of questions. And so there's always different tools and almost like changes you can make to control for those hallucinations so you're getting the right answer.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Very much for your time.
Doug. It's been such a pleasure.
Everybody, thank you for your time to listen to this. I hope you got as much out of it as we did. As always, I like to leave with kind of a tagline that I've used over the years is, you must be strategic in your thinking, develop the tactics to accomplish your goals, and intentional in your actions to be successful. Everybody, thank you again for your time. We look forward to the next time we have this kind of a conversation, and we'll go from there. Have a great day. Thank you.